On Friday, May 3, 2013, Israel launched an airstrike on a Syrian convoy, followed by a second attack on Sunday, May 5th, which targeted the Scientific Studies and Research Center in Jamria, near the Syrian capital of Damascus. The total number of deaths and injuries is still unclear at this point. Israeli officials were silent in regards to the strikes until Syria issued a public statement to the United Nations confirming the attacks, condemning them as an act of war, and asserting their right to retaliate. This is the second time this year that Israel has initiated unprovoked attacks on Syria. So what's really going on here? Why on earth would Israel do something like this? The first thing to be aware of is that these recent moves against Syria are actually indirect attacks on Iran. Syria and Iran are bound by a mutual defense treaty, and any large-scale war that breaks out with either one will most likely draw on the other. Likewise, any moves made by Israel can and will be interpreted as a move by the United States, because if Israel gets involved with a conflict with Iran, the United States will join the fight. This is not just an assumption. On April 17, 2013, the U.S. Senate Foreign Relations Committee voted to endorse Resolution 65, which affirmed that the United States will fully back Israel militarily and financially should it attack Iran. This is very serious considering that Israel has openly indicated its desire to use military force against Iran on numerous occasions. Now, this aggression by Israel comes right on the heels of accusations by the US government that the Syrian government had used chemical weapons against its own population, and that this constituted a red line that may justify military intervention. Just days later, the Obama administration mysteriously backed down from these claims, and the mainstream media went silent. Now we know why. As it turns out, a UN investigation into the matter revealed that it was actually the NATO-backed rebels which used the sarin gas in the conflict, not the Syrian government. This is more than just an embarrassing mix-up. There's evidence that this event was set up to frame the Syrian government and to create the pretext for US military involvement. In January of this year, leaked documents from a UK-based defense contractor revealed a proposal by Qatar to have the firm provide false evidence that Syria had given the go-ahead for the use of chemical weapons in the country. In the documents, they claimed that the plan had full approval from Washington. If this is in fact what happened, what's shocking here is that in their attempt to frame the Syrian government, NATO has actually facilitated the use of chemical weapons on a civilian population. This is a war crime by any measure. Now, of course, after Syria went public about the airstrikes, Israel was forced to put forth an official justification, and they're now claiming that these attacks targeted a shipment of missiles headed for Hezbollah in Lebanon. However, some analysts believe that the real motive was to derail Syria's recent progress in their fight against foreign militants who've been entering the country from Lebanon. Hezbollah, which is the most powerful military force in Lebanon, has sided with President Assad's government in what they say is a war against foreign-backed terrorists, and on May 1st, they indicated they may directly intervene in the conflict. Russia has also taken the side of the Syrian government, repeatedly calling for an end to external interference and warning that US plans to increase material support to the rebels could have grave consequences. Among these consequences, Russia has specifically indicated the risk of thermonuclear war. China has issued similar warnings. As in most of the major events that we're seeing unfolding right now, the real motives have nothing to do with the official justifications given by the government and the mainstream media. This has nothing to do with protecting the Syrian people. This much should be clear by the simple fact that NATO has backed these insurgents in spite of numerous atrocities, and is covering for them now even when they use chemical weapons. Nor is this about Iran attempting to build a nuke. Both the Mossad and the CIA have stated that Iran has yet to even decide to build a nuclear weapon, much less actually start. What this really comes down to is the fact that Iran is sitting on the world's third largest oil reserves, and it's not cooperating with the US and NATO agenda in that region. These attacks all have one goal in mind: to topple Syria and to draw Iran into an open confrontation, which would then give the US and NATO the pretext for an outright invasion. And make no mistake, that's what they want.
There will also be many side effects, all of them adverse, from an Israeli strike. But at the end of the day, if we don't get it done the way the administration's working on it now, which I totally agree with, then we ought to take them out.
Secretary Clinton.
Well, we're working hard. We're working hard.
I said at the end of the day may be next year. It will be next year.
If you want to learn more about this topic, please watch our video entitled The Road to World War III. Now, how this crisis will play out is impossible to predict. Human decisions are what will determine how far this escalates. As of yet, Iran and Syria have exercised considerable restraint in the face of these attacks, although it's uncertain how long they can afford to do so. If this aggression continues, there will be a breaking point. The reality is that the powers that be are intent on taking down Iran and Syria, and they're willing to go to any lengths, including outright deception, to make it happen. However, they can only do that as long as they have full control of the US military. And this is their Achilles heel. If you want to influence the outcome of the situation, this is where you need to strike. As American citizens, you have access to US military personnel. You can write letters to soldiers, you can send them videos, you can post in military forums. And if you live in a town with a military base, you can post posters and hand out flyers. If this is too much for you, then simply working to spread the message via Facebook and Twitter is a good start. All of this may seem like a long shot, but if even one high-level officer speaks out against the plans to go to war with Iran, it could have a ripple effect that prevents this from moving forward. It may be that you don't know anyone in the military directly. However, if you make a concerted effort to reach out to as many people as possible, you increase the chances that this information will reach someone who does know someone. But regardless of our chances, we have to try. A lot of innocent people are going to die if we fail. Sitting back and doing nothing is morally unacceptable. If you'd like more content like this, please subscribe to this channel, Storm Clouds Gathering on YouTube. Starting this week, we're going to have a new prepared video every weekday. So that's 5 videos a week. For updates, commentary, and bonus content, please follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/stormcloudsgathering, on Twitter at Collapse Updates, and our website, stormcloudsgathering.com.